Welcome back to Fantasy Folder, guys, the show where we talk about the problems that both experienced and new Dungeon Masters alike have, and we try and solve them. And today we're going to cover a very important topic, the first session of your new campaign. Let's picture the scene. You've bought all the books, you got the dice ready, you got a dice tray, you got the snacks, you got the drinks, you got the table, it's all set. You've built this world to the nth degree. You have political intrigue figured out for months. Dragons are roaming the coast and you know exactly what's going to happen at level 10 up until level 20, and you think to yourself, yes, it's all sorted. They're going to have a fantastic time. And then you realize they're level 1. But don't worry, it's not bad. I'm here to help you out and give you some ideas on level 1 storylines. The most basic of storylines. But when I say basic, it doesn't mean that it has to be you go into a cave and fight a load of goblins, although that's definitely one of the things we're going to talk about. They can be fun and interesting and have good political plots. So let's talk about those adventures. Firstly, I want to preface this with this. You don't need to write anything. You don't have to come up with any of your own stuff. There are loads of pre-written adventures from level 1 to 5 which you can take, put into your own world, and you can use. A great example is one of these adventures right here, Storm King's Thunder from Wizards of the Coast themselves. Has a great level 1 to 5 starting adventure. Another one of their great ones is in their starter pack, The Lost Mines of Phandelver. If you want just really good, really well written level 1 to 5 adventuring packs for your players, you can't go wrong with that. But if you want to come up with something on your own so that you can lay the foundations for the political intrigue and the fantastic events that are going to be happening in your campaign, and that your players can run havoc in up to level 5 or however high they get, we can definitely start to look at that today. And the biggest piece of advice that I would give you is to start small. When we start to come up with the foundation and a place for our game, we often think about the bigger things, the wars, the dragons, and the political intrigue that's going to be happening in our game. We often think, well, what's the central city? Who rules it? What does their monarchy have in relation to other monarchies and other places within the world? What's their footprint on the world? And how does that affect our players? And you want this colour to be fleshed out so it seems like this vibrant picture. But your players aren't going there. They're starting off, typically, in a small town or in a tavern. And we should start them off in a small condensed space where they can feel like they can get to know everyone in there. And then that gives you time to work on the bigger things that they're going to be wanting to explore. If your game goes beyond this one, I've often found that while at the table, your players are going to be giving you those ideas so that you can build off them. One player may want to go and explore the rumours of necromancy out within the deserts, or another player may want to go and join the Brewers Guild of the ancient dwarven halls of the crystalline mountains to the north. Your players will voice these interests in game. All you have to do is listen, make notes, and then start to write side quests and storylines to do with this. It's a lot easier for you if you can just fill out the areas of the map which they want to go and only lift the fog of war of those areas, rather than trying to just paint this vibrant picture of a world. It's a lot easier, a lot less time consuming, and generally is a lot more fun because you're not constantly worrying about, oh, where are my notes on this particular place? Damn it, shit, there it is. You can do that. I've done that. But let's start small and then we can work our way out. So, back to the first session. There's often this trope that D&D adventures start out in a tavern. I fully endorse this trope. It's a good one. Starting off in a tavern, you have a vibrant social atmosphere, you have the possibility of combat, because everyone loves the tavern brawl, and you have the possibility of social encounters of talking to the barkeep and finding out where your adventure is. Having said that, my first session for my campaign kind of didn't start in a tavern. My first adventure started out on a ship. So, my adventurers did meet in a tavern, but they were there to meet an individual by the name of Dobbs. Dobbs was contracted by his benefactor to gather a load of adventurers to go off and do good deeds. That's all he said. And so he told the players that if they were to accept his deal and go off on this mission, his benefactor would pay them handsomely. And so they drank to the agreement, and at which point Dobbs started to reveal more of it. He said that there was a fort up into the east which was taken over by hobgoblins and other species of that ilk. And it was only after the first sentence did they realise that Dobbs was becoming fuzzy and hazy and all around a bit less there. Then did they realise that they couldn't move their limbs, couldn't move their arms, and they fell unconscious to discover that they themselves had been captured, placed in cells, and were now rocking side to side on the lovely waves of the ocean, stuck inside a galley. I found this worked for two reasons. One, because I knew my players. I knew that a lot of them were new, for one, and so they were going to wander off at stages. If I'd planted them just in a tavern in a town, there was a high likelihood that one of them would have just run off into the distance and had never been seen again. I needed to create this bond within the party of like, we have conquered something together and that we all have found ourselves in the same situation. And so I thought, well, placing them in a cell of a ship together and then escaping would create the party bond that I wanted for my players. And luckily it did. That group is still going. But also, it created an even more condensed environment for me to flesh out. There were, in total, 10 crew members. And on top of that, you had Dobbs, his Lieutenant Tyson, the half-orc barbarian, and the quartermaster Horatio. All in all, it wasn't a lot to flesh out. I had to flesh out the 4 layers of the ship, what was in a couple of the rooms, and for all intents and purposes, all I created was a dungeon. But it was easily fleshed out, easily explored by the players, and so easy to run because I knew where everything would be going. There wasn't any chances they could run off, and if they did, all they'd do was go into the ocean, and then I knew exactly what would happen. They'd get picked up by the ship again and placed back down into the cells. Yes, you can call it sandboxing and trying to control your players, but at the end of the day, they love the session and we're still going and they're coming back week after week. And all I had to do was flesh out a very, very small area to give it colour. And while this was still a very small condensed area, I left a paper trail. Why did Dobbs have to capture them? Why did he stick them in the cells? Why were they so needed? Also, how did he get away with poisoning and sleep drafting all of them back in the tavern? I planted that, and from there it led to an expanding storyline, which I won't ruin for you, but it led to a fantastic, great deal of sessions, and while they may have conquered that now, it's still part of their history which they enjoy. So that's a really simple little idea of mine, but there are many other routes that you can take to start your first adventure. A great piece of advice I found is to talk to your players about what they want. Do they want a high political intrigue game? Do they want a high combat game? Do they want a mixture of the two? From there, you can start to work around them so everyone has fun. You have fun running the players and the monsters through all of this, and they have fun going through your adventure. It's a 50-50 combination, and it's a partnership in some ways of both the group and the Dungeon Master. Everyone must enjoy themselves, or otherwise, why are we here? But back to the story. Your players could meet in a tavern and there be hired to deal with the threat of goblins on the outskirts of town in a long abandoned fort, and could go and deal with the problem, only to discover that the goblins themselves are only the immediate threat and are actually in league with an evil necromancer trying to raise up and resurrect the evil warlord who once lay waste to this land, and he found his ancestral tomb and is now trying to raise him from the dead as his necromantic bastard of a lieutenant. And your players somehow found that, and well, that's a good start for an adventure, I'd say. I've always really wanted to run a campaign where the players are hired individually, like mercenaries, individual bodyguards, for a wedding that, while they're following the wedding party to the church, is actually attacked by kobolds and goblins, and the bride or groom is stolen away just before the ceremony and taken away into the depths of the forest, and now they have to go and find them, and it's a race against time to try and get them back before the wedding so that they still get their gold for protection. It's an interesting concept, and just off the cuff, you can come up with a couple of different ideas of where that could lead to. It could just be a plain old sacrifice, or is there a third party involved? Is someone hiring the kobolds and goblins to steal the bride or groom for a more nefarious reason? Or maybe there are other reasons, like the groom doesn't want to get married, and so he hires them to steal him away so he can make his illustrious escape off to the eastern desert so he can live out his life in peace and doesn't want to get married. All these ideas are as legitimate as each other and could lead to some great fun. So right there, we have 3 really malleable ideas for your first adventure for your players. And there are limitless possibilities. Truly limitless possibilities. And you don't just have to use gnolls, hobgoblins, goblins, wildlife, anything like that. You could use moffats and have an elemental themed adventure. You could use low-level undead and go for a kind of necromantic idea of a quest line. Just limitless possibilities. Look through the monster manual. There are dozens of low-level creatures that you could throw against your players and base an adventure off. There are so many ideas here, guys, and it's just a matter of sitting down and going, what do I want to try and achieve here? What do I want to try and use? And go from there. Thanks for watching, guys. If you want to keep up to date with this show and the channel as a whole, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And if you could, just hit that like button down below. It really helps us out. If you want to give me a topic for a show in the future, leave it in the comment section down below. I really want to hear what you guys would like me to talk about so I can go away and really think about it and come back to you guys with my honest opinions. Next time, we're going to be talking about how to come up with the big bad enemy for your campaign, whether that's going to be for a low-level campaign, mid-tier, or the epic tiers of your campaign. Until next time, guys, roll well.